For 8 years, Matt Roloff and Caryn Chandler lived a life that fans of Little People Big World never fully understood. They saw the Oregon side of it. They saw Matt on Roloff farms during pumpkin season, giving tours, running the operation, being the patriarch of the family television show. They saw Caryn at his side during family events, holidays, and business meetings. But there was another side to Matt and Caryn's relationship that most fans only saw glimpses of. A quieter side, a warmer side, a side that unfolded not on the green fields of Oregon, but under the dry sun of the Sonoran Desert, in a modest two-bedroom home in a suburb of Phoenix, Arizona, that Caryn had grown up around, and that Matt had come to love more than he had ever loved anything about the Oregon farm. Tonight on LPBW Update, we are walking through the full story of Matt Roloff and Caryn Chandler's Arizona home, where it is, when they bought it, who they bought it from, what their daily life there looked like, why Caryn wanted to move to Arizona full-time in 2022, why Matt kept splitting his time between the two states, what the Arizona home came to represent in their relationship, and what happened to that shared desert life after the July 2025 breakup that ended their 8-year engagement forever. Because to understand Matt and Caryn, you cannot just look at Oregon. You have to look at Arizona too. The desert was where they were most themselves. It was where they escaped the pressure of the show, the family, the farm, and the endless drama. And it was, in the end, the place they had built together as a couple, that they now have to figure out how to divide. Let us start with the location. The Arizona home is located in Surprise, Arizona. Surprise is a growing suburb of Phoenix, part of the greater Phoenix metropolitan area, located in the West Valley section of Maricopa County. It is not one of the most famous Phoenix suburbs. It is not Scottsdale, it is not Paradise Valley, it is not Chandler, ironically enough given Caryn's last name. Surprise is quieter, more middle class, more residential. It is the kind of place where retirees and working families live, not the kind of place where reality television celebrities usually build glamorous second homes. And that in itself tells you something important about the kind of life Matt and Caryn wanted to build together. They did not want a mansion in Scottsdale. They did not want a resort-style compound. They wanted a modest, comfortable, sun-drenched home in a normal community. And Surprise, Arizona was exactly the right kind of place for that. The specific house they bought was a 2-bedroom, 2.5-bath property. That is significant. 2 bedrooms means one for them and one for guests, which usually meant Matt's grandchildren or one of Matt's or Caryn's adult children visiting for a weekend. 2.5 baths is a modest amount for a vacation home. This was not a mega mansion. It was a nice, comfortable working couple's home. The property had a sunny back patio, an open floor plan, a modern kitchen, and the kind of design that made it ideal for the Arizona climate. It was a home built for the desert. Cool tiles, ceiling fans, sliding glass doors to the patio, the kind of house where you could sit in the shade with a cold drink and watch the sunset over the mountains. The purchase in 2018 came with an unusual twist. Matt and Caryn did not buy the house on the open market. They bought it from Caryn's parents. Yes, Caryn's own mother and father owned the property. They were retirees who had made their home in Surprise, Arizona years earlier. Caryn had grown up visiting them there. She knew the neighborhood, she knew the neighbors, she knew the local restaurants and grocery stores and hardware stores and everything else. When Caryn's parents decided to downsize or move, they offered the property to Matt and Caryn for a family-friendly price of $375,000. Matt and Caryn bought it, and that meant that Caryn's parents continued to live just 1.5 miles away in a nearby home, which meant that whenever Matt and Caryn were in Arizona, they could easily visit Caryn's parents, which meant that a visit to Arizona was not just a vacation, it was a family gathering. Matt was, in a very real sense, building a life with Caryn that included her parents as neighbors. That is a specific kind of commitment. That is choosing not just a partner, but a whole family, a whole community, a whole life that surrounds them. Matt has been open, in various interviews and Facebook Live sessions over the years, about why he wanted the Arizona home. In 2018, he told fans that he enjoyed the heat and the low humidity of Arizona. He said the home was an investment property and something to play around with. Instead of going to hotels and staying at different places when he wanted to escape Oregon, he explained, he could have one location that was very conducive to his short stature. That last phrase is important. Matt has diastrophic dysplasia. He walks with crutches. He uses a motorized cart. Standard hotel rooms are not built for him. Standard bathrooms are difficult. Standard kitchens have counters he cannot reach. When he traveled, he had to adapt to spaces that were not made for his body. Owning his own Arizona home meant he could customize the space. He could lower counters. He could install accessible bathroom fixtures. He could make the whole space work for him in a way that no hotel ever could. That is not a small consideration for a little person. That is a fundamental issue of daily living, and the Arizona home solved it. Beyond the accessibility, the Arizona home was Matt's escape. In a June 2022 episode of Little People, Big World, he said something remarkable. He said, "When I go to Arizona, this is my relaxed time, my refuge. It is good for the longevity of my heartbeat." That kind of language, refuge, longevity of the heartbeat, is the language of a man who feels genuine relief when he is away from his primary place of business. Matt loved Roloff Farms. He built it. He shaped it. He poured his life into it. But by 2018, he was in his late 50s. He had been running the farm for nearly 30 years. He was tired. He was, as he put it in interviews, feeling that the farm had become tiresome. Arizona was the antidote. Arizona was the place where he did not have to be Matt Roloff, the patriarch of one of America's most famous reality television families. He could just be Matt, a man with a fiancé in the desert, a man with grandkids visiting for the weekend, a man on the back porch with a drink in his hand and no responsibilities beyond enjoying the sunset. Caryn, for her part, had loved Arizona her whole life. She had visited her parents there for years before she and Matt bought the home. She had roots in the area. She had friends. She had a familiarity with the community. She was, in every meaningful sense, more at home in Arizona than she ever was on Roloff Farms in Oregon. Working as the farm manager for years had been her job. Arizona was her heart. And when Matt and Caryn moved into the surprise home together, Caryn started to build her adult life there. She spent time with her parents. She joined the local community. She got involved in things that had nothing to do with Roloff Farms or Little People, Big World. The daily rhythms of Matt and Caryn's life in Arizona became something specific and understandable. They would wake up in the desert morning. They would have coffee on the back porch. They would visit Caryn's parents for lunch or dinner. They would run errands. They would sometimes go to concerts, which Matt has referenced in multiple Instagram posts over the years. They would enjoy the pool. They would enjoy the shopping malls and restaurants of Surprise and the greater Phoenix area. In the evenings, they would sit outside as the temperatures dropped from the punishing Arizona daytime highs to the more comfortable evening lows. They would sometimes host Matt's children or grandchildren for visits. In December of 2022, Matt hosted his daughter Molly and her husband Joel Silvius at the Arizona home. Matt captioned the photo, "Getting in the Christmas spirit down here in Arizona." That is what Arizona was for Matt and Caryn. It was Christmas in the desert. It was a life together that felt easier and lighter than the life in Oregon. Now, the tension in Matt and Caryn's Arizona life came from one specific place. Caryn wanted to move to Arizona permanently. Matt could not because his family was in Oregon. In November of 2022, sources told the U.S. Sun that Caryn was planning to move to Arizona full-time, likely by January of 2023. She had been wanting to relocate for so long, the source said. She and Matt often stayed at their vacation home on weekends, but this would be permanent. Caryn was going to move first, without Matt, to get settled. She was going to rent out her house in Oregon. They wanted to start planning for the future. The reasons for the planned move were also disclosed. Caryn was reportedly done with Little People, Big World. She had been pulled into the family feud between Matt and his sons over the farm sale. She had been accused, unfairly or not, of encouraging Matt not to sell the farm to Zach. Zach and Tori Roloff had at one point said they had no intention of introducing their newborn son Josiah to Caryn. That kind of rejection from her partner's own children was painful. Caryn wanted out. She wanted Arizona. She wanted to be near her parents. She wanted the sunny back porch. She wanted the peace. Matt could not fully commit to the move. He had his grandchildren in Oregon. He had the farm. He had his ongoing responsibilities. He said in various interviews that there was no way he could be away from his grandbabies for more than a couple of weeks at a time. That statement, in retrospect, was one of the earliest signs of the fracture that would eventually end his relationship with Caryn. Matt was rooted in Oregon in a way Caryn was not. Matt could not fully leave his family. Caryn could not fully embrace a family that had, in various ways, rejected her. The Arizona home became a compromise. They spent extended periods there. They kept their Oregon lives going. They never fully committed to a permanent Arizona relocation because doing so would have meant Matt choosing Caryn over his family, which he was not willing to do. The Arizona home also became the site of one of the most emotional moments in their relationship. In April of 2023, Matt proposed to Caryn on the property. In their Arizona backyard, under the desert sun, with the mountains in the distance, Matt asked Caryn to marry him. She said yes. She wept. She has said in interviews that Matt told her, in that moment, that he had thought about the proposal for a long time and that he wanted to grow old with her. The Arizona home was, in that specific moment, the place where their forever was supposed to begin. They had bought the house together. Her parents lived nearby. She loved it there. Matt loved being there with her. It was the perfect location for the proposal, and it seemed to everyone watching like the natural setting for the wedding that would follow in 2024. Except the wedding never happened. As we have discussed in many other videos on this channel, 2024 came and went with no wedding announcement, no venue booking, no date set. Matt and Caryn's engagement dragged on. The Arizona home stayed part of their lives, but the promise of the desert wedding they had implicitly planned for evaporated month by month. Something was wrong. Something was not clicking. In March of 2024, sources reported that Caryn had sold her separate Oregon home for $529,000 after a small price drop. The listing showed her 3-bedroom, 3-bath home in Portland. That sale suggested she was still moving toward the Arizona permanent life she had been planning for years. But even after selling her Oregon home, Caryn did not fully move to Arizona full-time. Something was keeping her tethered to Oregon. That something most likely was Matt. She could not fully commit to the desert while Matt was still tied to the farm. And Matt could not fully commit to the desert while his children were in Oregon. The stalemate continued. Then, on July 22, 2025, Matt announced on Instagram that he and Caryn had ended their engagement. 8 years of relationship, 2 years of engagement, over, in one Instagram post. The Arizona home was, at that moment, a place that they had shared for 7 years. It was, and remains, one of the most significant material joint investments of their relationship. What happens to it now is a question that has not been fully answered in public. Matt has continued to post occasionally from Arizona in the months since the split, suggesting he still has access to the home. Whether Caryn has also had access, whether they have divided the property, whether one of them will buy out the other, all of that has been kept private. Caryn's daughter Brittany and her son Connor have continued to visit her at various points. But the daily life that Matt and Caryn had built in Surprise, Arizona, no longer exists. The 2-bedroom house that they bought together in 2018, the site of their engagement, the refuge from Oregon that Matt had called good for the longevity of his heartbeat, is now the property of a former couple. That is a strange thing to be. A house that was supposed to be the setting for a lifetime is now the setting for figuring out how to disentangle 2 lives. What does this all mean in the broader story of Matt and Caryn? A few things. First, that the Arizona home was probably one of the reasons the relationship lasted as long as it did. It gave Matt and Caryn a place away from the Oregon drama. It gave them a shared project. It gave them a life apart from the show and the family. That kind of shared private space is essential for couples. especially couples whose primary lives are documented on television. Without Arizona, the pressures of Oregon might have broken them years earlier. With Arizona, they had a place to breathe, to be themselves, to reset. Second, that the Arizona home was also part of what broke them. Caryn wanted the desert to be permanent. Matt could not fully commit to the desert. That tension between Caryn's desire for a full Arizona life and Matt's need to stay tied to Oregon and his family was, in retrospect, one of the fundamental incompatibilities of the relationship. They wanted different things. They wanted different lives. The Arizona home represented one vision of their future. Matt's ties to Oregon represented another. They never fully reconciled the two, and eventually the failure to reconcile caught up with them. Third, the Arizona home tells us something about how Matt and Caryn actually related to each other. When they were in Arizona, by all accounts, they were happier. They were more relaxed. They enjoyed each other more. The stress of Oregon and the family conflicts fell away. That, in the end, is one of the sadder aspects of the breakup. When they were away from all the pressures that had defined their public relationship, they seemed to genuinely love each other. But they could not live in Arizona forever. Matt could not permanently leave his life, and Caryn could not permanently accept a life that was primarily Oregon-based. So they broke up. Because the Arizona version of their relationship, the version that worked, was not the version they could actually sustain long-term. Looking at the Arizona home in 2026, it stands as a monument to what could have been. It is still there. It still has the sunny back porch. It still has Caryn's parents living just 1.5 miles away. It still has the desert sunsets that Matt loves so much. But the couple that built the shared life around it is no longer a couple. The house that was supposed to be there forever is now, in some form, a legal matter to be worked out between two people who are no longer together. It is a sad ending. It is the kind of ending that many couples face when they realize, after years of building a life together, that they cannot actually make the pieces fit. The Arizona home was one of the most beautiful pieces of Matt and Caryn's puzzle. It just was not enough to complete the whole picture. So I want to know what you think. Do you think the Arizona home is what pulled Matt Roloff away from his kids? Or was it just a symptom of the bigger family drama that would have happened anyway? Do you think one of Matt or Caryn will end up buying the other out and keeping the Arizona property? Or do you think they will sell it and each move on to different homes? And do you think Matt and Caryn were happier in Arizona together than they were in Oregon? And does that tell us something important about why the relationship ended? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one and I love hearing from you. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe to LPBW Update, and ring the bell so you do not miss our weekly Roloff family stories. We are committed to bringing you the truth, the timeline, and the heart of every member of this remarkable family. I will see you on the next one.